The curtain goes down on the World Scout Jamboree as 40,000 young scouts gather this evening in Seoul's Sangam World Cup Stadium for a finale and K-pop concert. Typhoon Khanun has moved away from South Korea, leaving behind hundreds of cases of property and facility damages across the country, although no official casualties have been reported. The years-long unresolved issue of Iranian assets frozen in South Korea now seems to have been ironed out as the U.S. reaches a related deal with Iran. It's August 11th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The 25th World Scout Jamboree that began in Saemangeum comes to a finale this evening at the World Cup Stadium in Seoul. We connect with our Shin Se-byuk standing by at the venue. Se-byuk, what's happening there at this moment, and tell us what the participants had to say.
Well, Tommy, the 25th World Scout Jamboree is finally coming to a close after quite a journey. Since its kickoff on August 1st, there have been unexpected hurdles and hiccups. The organizer had faced criticism over inadequate preparation for the event, such as lack of shade and poor sanitation amid extreme heat waves. What's more, due to concerns over Typhoon Khanun, all the Jamboree participants had to leave the original venue in Saemangeum, Jeollabuk-do province. Well, since then, the program has been expanded across the country, allowing the participants to take part in alternative tours and cultural experiences. Well, it's been a roller coaster ride, but those who took part in the Jamboree said they had fun during the 12-day program.
I feel very grateful for all the times when we were in the Jamboree, and I'm glad that they actually managed to open up the closing ceremony for us.
I met a lot of friends, I met a lot of people. The culture, the food, it's all very beautiful, it's all very nice.
And now some 40,000 Jamboree participants gathered here at Seoul World Cup Stadium for the closing ceremony and the much-anticipated K-pop concert. To ensure everyone's safety, over 1,000 buses transported the participants here between 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And the closing ceremony itself got underway at 5:30 p.m. and went on for about 30 minutes. Those from the United States and the United Kingdom who withdrew last week due to extreme heat waves also took part in today's finale. About an hour from now at 7 p.m., the K-pop concert will begin. Originally planned for Saemangeum's outdoor stage on the 6th of August, the location went through a couple of switches due to sweltering conditions and Typhoon Khanun. First to Jeonju World Cup Stadium for the 11th, and then to here at Seoul World Cup Stadium. A total of 19 K-pop acts, including New Jeans, IVE, and NCT Dream, will perform. And to be prepared for any unexpected emergencies and medical situations, government authorities have set up 4 emergency medical stations on site, and more than 10 ambulances are on standby.
It has been quite a journey. And what is the plan for the Jamboree participants once everything wraps up there?
Well, once everything is over, everyone will head back to where they are staying. And after that, based on their schedules, they will start making their way back home. But there are post-event tours and activities lined up for those who wish to travel around South Korea after the official end of the Jamboree. To name a few, down in Gyeongju, they are rolling out cultural experience events, of which 400 participants from 5 countries, including Germany and Romania, have already signed up. The Seoul metropolitan government has also decided to offer special nighttime tours for scouts until tomorrow. The Seoul Beach Festival over at Gwanghwamun Square in central Seoul was supposed to wrap up today, but this has been extended until the 15th. So even though the official Jamboree is done, scouts from all over the world still get a bit more time to soak up the cultural vibes of Korea. Back to you, Jung-min.
Our Shin Se-byuk live at the World Cup Stadium. Thank you. Typhoon Khanun has left South Korea towards into the north. Hundreds of facility damage cases have been reported across the country, while there's been no official casualties reported. Our Choi So-young reports from on the site.
On Thursday night, central parts of Seoul and the greater metropolitan area saw 80 millimeters of rain per hour from around 9 p.m., all attributable to the effects of Khanun. In addition, the Korean Meteorological Administration said that Seoul is expected to see more rainfall, 5 to 40 millimeters until Saturday, while northern Gyeonggi-do province is forecast to receive 20 to 60 millimeters.
Typhoon Khanun has weakened and moved into North Korea, but in Seoul and here in Hanam, we are still seeing rain.
The typhoon maintained its intensity and making landfall in southern regions of the peninsula, but weakened as it moved along the length of the country to the capital area. As a result, significant damage was avoided, but the typhoon is expected to be recorded as an unusually long-lasting weather event with its heavy downpours. Khanun is the second typhoon to stay over South Korea for more than 12 hours following Typhoon Solik in 2018. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters reported, as of 11 a.m., 379 cases of property and facility damage, including residential flooding and a combined submerged agricultural area of over 11.5 square kilometers, or around 3.3 times larger than Central Park in New York. While power outages affecting 46,000 households were also reported, over 98% of them have had theirs restored. However, there were no reported casualties from the typhoon, although there was one drowning incident in Daegu and one person is currently missing. As Typhoon Khanun has moved on to near Pyongyang in North Korea from 11 a.m., all typhoon warnings and restrictions nationwide in South Korea have been lifted. The KMA said that by Sunday, the entire country will be free from the typhoon's influence, but that the extreme heat is expected to return. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Iran is set to free 5 imprisoned Americans in exchange for several of its own detained in the U.S. and gain access to $6 billion of funds frozen in South Korea. Seoul has responded it hopes this matter resolved smoothly, entangled with its relationship with Tehran. Choi Min-jung reports.
The United States and Iran have reached a prisoner swap deal in what is seen as an encouraging development in their rocky relationship. Sources familiar with the matter on Thursday said that Iran being given access to billions of U.S. dollars in Iranian funds frozen in South Korea is also part of the deal.
First, it's a positive step that they were released from prison and sent to home detention. But this is just the beginning of a process that I hope and expect will lead to their return home to the United States.
It's reportedly known that the 5 Americans will be allowed to leave Iran in exchange for several returning to Iran from the U.S. once Tehran secures the $6 billion worth of oil payments frozen in South Korea. Citing an anonymous source, Iran's state media reported Thursday that funds in South Korea have been changed into euros in a bank in Switzerland. These dollars were locked in South Korea under sanctions imposed by the U.S., following its withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. A South Korean foreign ministry official told reporters that the ministry hopes this matter can be resolved smoothly. The frozen funds have become one of the main reasons behind South Korea and Iran's thorny relations, as Tehran has long been demanding that Seoul releases the funds. However, the U.S. clarified that the funds could only be used for humanitarian purposes like buying food or medicine.
Iran's own funds would be used and transferred to restricted accounts such that the monies can only be used for humanitarian purposes, which, as you know, is permitted under our sanctions.
The rare deal between Washington and Tehran reportedly comes after at least 2 years of negotiations. Though it is viewed as a positive step to their relations, there is also criticism that the funds allocated for humanitarian goods could be used for Iran's nuclear program. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
South Korea, the United States, and Japan are looking to make top-level meetings and joint military drills regular in a joint statement that's reportedly being negotiated ahead of a meeting between the 3 leaders at Camp David next Friday. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
The leaders of South Korea, the United States and Japan are planning to meet at least once a year for trilateral talks and hold joint military exercises to deter North Korea's nuclear threat. That's according to a U.S. diplomat Thursday, who said the 3 countries are close to finalising a joint statement to be issued at Camp David after Presidents Yoon Suk-yeol and Joe Biden and Prime Minister Fumio Kishida hold talks next Friday. U.S. Ambassador to Japan Rahm Emanuel told Japanese media that the joint document is being finalised and will include holding a yearly trilateral leaders meeting separate from international conferences. He said the leaders are also looking to conduct annual trilateral joint training between their militaries as North Korea continues to develop nuclear weapons and missiles and China strengthens its maritime advances. The three leaders will also strengthen intel sharing and cyber cooperation, as well as touch upon economic security, with such agreements expected to, quote, change the strategic landscape of the Indo-Pacific region. Emanuel added that a separate vision statement will be released, taking trilateral collaboration into a new phase. This comes amid speculation that the three countries are working to build a mechanism for three-way cooperation, although it is unclear whether the joint statement would mention China or to what extent it would be alluded to, given the geopolitical sensitivities in the region.
So I think when it comes to PRC matters, it's going to be more on the general geostrategic challenge posed by Beijing and economic challenges, but perhaps less pointed and less hard-hitting than anything we might see on North Korea. For instance, I think there'll be sort of vague, veiled references to upholding the rule of law and against economic coercion.
On that note, Seoul's National Security Advisor Cho Tae-yong told reporters last Friday that a consensus is being formed on holding the yearly trilateral gatherings, and that the outcome will likely materialize after the leaders' discussions. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
The head of an international organization that monitors signs of nuclear explosions worldwide urges North Korea to refrain from testing its nuclear weapons as he visits South Korea. Our Bae Eun-ji spoke with the chief of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization.
North Korea's commitment to a moratorium on nuclear testing or signing the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty could be the first step to building the trust needed to lead to peace and security on the Korean peninsula. That's according to the head of the CTBTO, a global body that promotes the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. While noting that the nuclear test site in North Korea appears to be ready for use, he said the decision of whether or not to carry out another test lies with the North Korean leadership, and that the pathway to the future has got to be through dialogue.
I would call upon North Korea to do the responsible thing and commit with the rest of the nations of the world to a moratorium on nuclear testing.
North Korea conducted its sixth and last nuclear test in 2017. It declared a halt to all nuclear and ICBM tests in April 2018, but broke its self-imposed moratorium last year by resuming long-range missile tests. Based in Vienna, Austria, the CTBTO is responsible for seeking to establish a ban on nuclear testing and has more than 300 monitoring stations around the world to detect signs of a nuclear explosion.
So to the people of the Republic of Korea, we can say to you is that an explosion, a nuclear explosion in North Korea will be detected no matter where it is or when it takes place.
He also stressed that South Korea has been a strong supporter of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty from day one, and that the partnership is getting stronger. South Korea signed the treaty on September 24, 1996, and ratified it on the same day. Adopted by the United Nations in 1996, the treaty has near universal support, but has not been put into force, as it still needs ratification from 8 specific countries. The U.S., China, Egypt, Iran, and Israel have signed the treaty but not ratified it, and North Korea, India, and Pakistan have not even signed it. Meanwhile, on the public debate over whether South Korea should acquire its own nuclear weapons to deter threats from North Korea, he said the country has been taking a bold and responsible position to continue to call on the world without nuclear weapons. He added this has been a consistent position of the Korean government that is very much appreciated. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has seen positive signs in the country's economy despite a slowdown, due specifically to a recovery in exports and economic sentiment. Our economics correspondent Shin Ha-young has more.
South Korea's economic slowdown has eased due to a recovery in exports and improved economic sentiment, according to the Finance Ministry's Economic Green Book released on Friday.
The ministry mentioned a slowing economy in its monthly assessment report for the 7th consecutive month. But it's the first time for the government to positively assess the slowdown trend since February.
As there's been an improvement in the manufacturing sector and exports, we have used a more positive expression for the economic assessment compared to last month. However, due to the unfavorable weather conditions in July and August, we added that there may be monthly fluctuations as a constraint factor in the report.
Exports in July recorded around $50 billion for a year-on-year decrease of 16.5%, but they're expected to see positive growth from October. Due to the decline in global energy prices, imports last month also decreased by more than 25%, resulting in a trade surplus for the second straight month. Regarding the recent criticism that this was a recession trade surplus, the ministry official stated that it is not a recession surplus if only the export value decreases while the volume increases. Instead, he added it was more accurate to describe it as a trade surplus driven by stable oil and energy prices. There have been signs of a recovery in export volume. This had been recording year-on-year declines since March, but saw a rise of 7.5% in June. The export volume for semiconductors increased by about 8% in May and over 21% in June. South Korean consumers also have a more optimistic view of the country's economy. The Composite Consumer Sentiment Index rose 2.5 percentage points in July from the previous month. Meanwhile, the finance ministry said global economic uncertainties remain, including monetary tightening, the prolonged war in Ukraine, and volatility in raw material prices. In response, the government plans to enhance economic vitality in the latter half of the year by focusing on stabilizing people's livelihoods and addressing price instability and damage caused by heat waves and heavy rain. 신하영, Arirang News.
The wildfires that have been scorching the Hawaiian island of Maui have for 3 days have killed at least 55 people as of Thursday local time, and the toll is expected to rise. Hawaii Governor Josh Green calls Maui's wildfires the largest natural disaster in the state's history, and they have turned much of the historic town of Lahaina to ruins. Thousands of tourists and locals have been evacuated from the western side of the island, and as many as 1,000 buildings have been destroyed. The wildfires caught Maui off guard after at least 3 major fires broke out on Tuesday. Officials estimate the fire that burned Lahaina was 80% contained by Thursday morning, and none of the other fires were 100% contained. It is time for our weekly arts and culture segment. We have our culture correspondent Song Yujin joining us in the studio. Welcome, Yujin.
Great to be back, Jungmin.
What do you have for us today?
Well, Jungmin, as you may know, next Tuesday, August 15th, is Gwangbokjeol, also known as National Liberation Day in Korea. And this was the day when Korea finally regained its independence from Japan in 1945 after 35 years of colonization. So every year around this time, we see a lot of events going on in the country to really honor the resilience and sacrifices of Koreans during that period. But this year, there happens to be a special exhibition taking place in the city of Glendale in the United States. So for this week, I looked at the reason why the city is holding this exhibition. Let's first take a look. In Glendale, Los Angeles, stands the Statue of Peace. First installed in Seoul in 2011, this statue remembers the young women and girls who were forced into sexual slavery by Japan during World War II. A replica found its place in Glendale 2 years later. In light of this, curator Chun Hae-yeon has been holding a special exhibition every year since 2014.
After the statue was installed, Japanese far-right activists filed lawsuits and sent protest emails. the mayor of Glendale encouraged the Korean community to take action. I initially organized the exhibition through donations, and since 2017, I've partnered with the city library.
The centerpiece, an installation called Remembrance Unveiled by Choi Jong-un. The empty chair resembles the one that's part of the peace statue.
So it's a clear acrylic chair that has the water as well as the water of both cities and the soil from the cemetery from the Comfort Women.
The water from Korea came from the Imjingang River near the demilitarized zone, which Choi collected himself. Another installation is Water Shadow 정한수 by Kim Chang-gyum, which projects videos of Korean comfort women on a bowl-like structure. The rippling waves represent the pain and shame the victims had to endure. Ju Do-young's faces are portraits of contemporary Korean women, ranging from a kindergartner, a monk, to an elderly woman. There are also photographs of Indonesian comfort women by Dutch artist Jan Benning and a separate section showcasing the works of Korean students from local schools. The curators hope the exhibition can shed light on the issue, foster understanding, and bring about change.
We didn't know very little about comfort women when we first started doing the exhibition, so it's been a constant education for us, and everybody who sees it.
Japan remains unchanged. They continue to promote pro-Japanese policies in Glendale, but Koreans, on the other hand, seem to have relatively little interest. The rights of comfort women haven't improved a lot when compared to the past, so it would be great if we could raise awareness.
You can explore Woman and War at Glendale Library until September 24th.
Wish I could have a chance to see all those creative artworks in person. And then what are some cultural events as we can enjoy here in this country?
Well, you don't have to be disappointed, Tongmin, because there are actually a few options. So one great exhibition, the National Museum of Korea is currently showcasing three national treasures that's related to National Liberation Day and also independence activists. So out of them, 2 are belongings of late independence activists, the very renowned ones, Lee Bong-chang and Yoon Bong-gil. So among them is an oath penned by Lee before he embarked on his mission to Japan, aiming to assassinate the then Japanese emperor. And also a notebook owned by Yoon, which contains his last will. Yoon is known for throwing a bomb at Lushin Park, targeting Japanese officials back in 1932. And additionally, there's the Teni Taegeuk, the oldest surviving Korean national flag. And this flag was presented by then Joseon King Go-jong to his diplomat advisor Owen Denny, so that's where it gets its name.
Right, and Eugene, I heard something touching about an independence fighter and his wife posthumously reuniting after a long time. What is that story?
Yes, well, after over the century, late independence activist Choi Jae-young and his wife Choi Elena will finally be back together. To give a little more background information of Choi Jae-young, he helped independence fighters by selling military supplies to Russia. So he was a really big supporter, although he was an independence activist himself. So following his death, which was in 1920, he was killed by the Japanese Imperial Army. His wife Choi Elena was deported to Kyrgyzstan, where she spent the rest of her life. And the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans, in light of the 78th anniversary of the National Liberation Day, repatriated the remains of Choi Elena this Tuesday. And today, the ministry happens to bring soil from the presumed site of Choi's death in Ussurisk, Russia, into the country. And that's because Choi's remains have yet to be recovered, so the remains of Choi Elena and the soil will be interred together at the Seoul National Cemetery next Monday, which is one day before National Liberation Day.
All right, thank you, Eugene.
Thank you.
Although the typhoon has completely dissipated as it weakened into a tropical depression, the nation will still be under the indirect influence. Central regions have lingering showers remaining until the morning. For northern Gyeonggi-do province, 20 to 60 millimeters are in store. For the Seoul metropolitan area and the surrounding regions, 5 to 40 millimeters are expected. Temperatures will keep rising from this point on. For this weekend, highs will be topping out at 29 degrees Celsius tomorrow, and by Sunday, sweltering conditions will prevail. A big jump in the readings can make us more vulnerable to viruses. Drink plenty of water and make sure to take extra precautions against heat-related illnesses. Along with the heat, UV rays will be intense as well. UV ray index will stand in the high to very high range. Strong UV rays are expected for this entire weekend. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gwangju will be starting off at 23 degrees. Highs in Seoul get up to 29, Gwangju 31, Daegu and Gyeongju will be topping out at 32 degrees. And for next week, the capital region will see partly cloudy skies with sweltering temperatures. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.